A jewelry store ignored an elderly woman. The next day, she bought the company and fired the employees.
Hello everyone. Enjoy these relaxing moments while you watch.
Here it is. Clara muttered, taking hesitant steps toward the shop. The Golden Sun jewelry store shimmered brilliantly, like a completely different world from the peaceful village where she lived. Her worn wool scarf made her stand out amidst the well-dressed crowd passing by. The bell above the shop door jingled softly as Clara stepped inside. The interior radiated luxury, gleaming glass display cases, warm golden lighting, and employees in immaculate uniforms standing behind the counters. But as Clara entered, the atmosphere seemed to shift. A few staff members exchanged furtive glances, and one smirked. "Good morning," Clara greeted, her voice trembling slightly. "I'd like to see the necklace in that display case." A young employee, Lucy, glanced Clara up and down with a sharp, icy gaze. "I'm sorry, which one are you referring to?" "The silver necklace with the blue stone, in the far right corner," Clara pointed, her eyes lighting up with hope. It was the gift she had been saving up for, meant for her granddaughter who was about to get married. Lucy's lips curled into a condescending smile. "Oh, that one? I don't think you can afford it. It's very expensive." Clara was startled by Lucy's bluntness but tried to remain composed. "I have the money. Can you please show it to me?" Lucy rolled her eyes subtly and turned to the manager, Mr. Stephen, who was standing nearby. "Sir, this woman wants to see the silver necklace in the corner." Stephen furrowed his brow and approached. He wore a sharp black suit, but his demeanor betrayed a distinct lack of respect as he looked at Clara. "I'm sorry. That necklace isn't available for sale. You can look at some other pieces that might better fit your budget." "But I saw it in the display case," Clara protested, her voice now tinged with confusion. "That's just a display model, not for sale," Stephen replied curtly before turning away, signaling the end of the conversation. Clara stood silently for a moment, feeling an ache tighten in her chest. She glanced around, hoping to find another staff member willing to help. An older employee, Isabel, briefly met her gaze but quickly shook her head and turned away. "Such a bother," a whispered voice drifted from a nearby counter. It was Charles, another employee, speaking to Lucy. "Does she really think she can buy anything here? Just look at that scarf, probably from some flea market." Lucy stifled a laugh, leaning in to whisper back. "She probably can't even afford the box it comes in." Clara heard every word, even though they spoke in hushed tones. Her face flushed red with humiliation, but she swallowed her pride and slowly approached another counter. "Excuse me," she addressed a different employee, Alexander. He didn't look at her, instead focusing on polishing the glass display, as if she didn't exist. "I'd like to see an item," Clara said, opening her bag to reveal an old envelope containing the money she had painstakingly saved over the years. Alexander glanced at the envelope without much interest and shrugged. "We don't have anything that cheap here. You might want to check out some smaller shops in the area, they'd be more suitable." The words cut like a knife into Clara's dignity. She tightened her grip on the envelope, staring at Alexander as if she wanted to say something, but no words came. None of them cared about the truth that every coin in that envelope represented years of hard work and her dream of bringing joy to her beloved granddaughter. Clara turned and walked toward the door, but her feet felt heavy with helplessness. "Why are they treating me like this? Just because I'm not dressed well?" she asked herself, her heart heavy with pain. Behind her, soft laughter echoed, like a final mockery seeing her out the door. Mrs. Clara stepped out into the cold, clutching her old cloth bag tightly. She stood still for a moment, feeling the chilly wind tug at her worn scarf. Her eyes welled up, but she tried to hold back her tears. "It's okay. I'll come back," she whispered to herself. But no matter how hard she tried, the sting of humiliation clung to her. Just thinking about the joy on her granddaughter Lucy's face when she received the wedding gift made Clara realize she couldn't give up. Determined, she decided to go back, this time trying to appear more resolute. She pushed the door open again. The bell jingled once more, but this time, the employee's expressions shifted from surprise to outright irritation. Lucy, the young clerk from before, immediately turned to Charles with a sneer and whispered just loud enough for Clara to hear. She actually came back. Unbelievable. Charles nudged Lucy, his eyes fixed on Clara. Let's see what she tries this time. Clara heard them but ignored the comments, walking directly to the display case. She tried to appear calm, though the scrutinizing stares from the employees made her feel like an outsider in this ostentatious world. "Excuse me, can you show me that necklace?" Clara asked, her voice steadier this time, striving to project confidence. Lucy didn't respond. She crossed her arms and stood still, her gaze cold and judgmental. "Which one are you talking about? We have lots of necklaces." "The silver one with the blue stone," Clara emphasized, pointing toward the display case. Lucy smirked and turned to Alexander. "Do you think she can actually afford it?" she asked, her tone dripping with mockery. Alexander glanced at Clara, his brows furrowing slightly. "I doubt it. But, let's see." He walked over to the case but didn't retrieve the necklace Clara had requested. Instead, he pulled out a simple silver chain with no stone. "Here. Would you like to see this one? It's much cheaper, more in line with what you can afford," Alexander said, his half-smile oozing arrogance. Clara looked at the chain, her heart sinking with disappointment. "No, I don't want this. I want the necklace with the blue stone in the case," she insisted. Lucy let out a mocking laugh, feigning surprise. "Oh, really? That necklace costs 1,200 euros. Are you sure about this?" Clara didn't flinch. She pulled out the old envelope from her bag and held it up in front of Lucy. "I have the money. You just need to show me the necklace." Lucy blinked at the envelope, then burst into laughter. "Cash? You brought cash here? We only accept card payments or bank transfers. But money is money, isn't it? I've saved this my whole life to buy that necklace," Clara said, her voice beginning to choke. Lucy crossed her arms and shrugged. "We can't accept large sums of cash. And besides, I don't think you're really here to buy anything. Maybe you're just here to look." Clara stared at Lucy, her eyes red and teary. "I'm not here just to look. I want to buy that necklace. Please, show it to me." At that moment, Stephen, the manager, stepped forward. He glanced at the envelope in Clara's hand and gave a faint smirk. "Madam, we can't sell that necklace to you. It's a special piece, reserved exclusively for VIP clients." Clara froze. "VIP clients? But I saw it in the display case. Why can't I buy it?" Stephen's smirk deepened. "Simply because you're not the right customer. We have other items that are more suitable for you. Let me show you." Clara tightened her grip on the envelope, anger rising in her chest. She felt as though she were being pushed to the edge, treated as if she were worthless. Taking a deep breath, she tried to stay calm. "If you don't want to sell it, I'll go somewhere else." She turned and walked toward the door, saying nothing more. But as she passed by, she heard Lucy's voice clearly behind her. "Who does she think she is? Some poor old lady coming in here, pretending she can buy something. It's ridiculous." The laughter of Lucy and Charles echoed behind her, cutting into Clara's pride like a knife. She quickened her pace, not daring to look back, tears streaming down her cheeks. Yet inside her, a quiet fury began to simmer, like a small flame ready to ignite. Mrs. Clara walked slowly along the bustling street, her eyes filled with sorrow and her heart weighed down. The mocking laughter of Lucy and Charles replayed in her mind, a bitter reminder that she had been looked down upon simply for her modest appearance. She tried to hold back her tears, but the pain in her chest was overwhelming. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out behind her. "Mrs. Clara! Mrs. Clara!" She turned to see Maria, a young neighbor from her village, hurrying toward her with a large bag. "I just picked up some gifts for my family and didn't expect to see you here," Maria said cheerfully, but her expression quickly turned worried when she noticed Clara's face. "Are you okay? You look tired." Clara forced a weak smile and shook her head. "I'm fine, Maria. I just came from a jewelry store." Maria frowned. "A jewelry store? But why do you look so upset?" Clara hesitated but then decided to tell Maria everything: the disdainful looks from the staff, the mocking remarks she had endured. As Maria listened, her grip on Clara's hand tightened, her eyes blazing with anger. "That's outrageous. They have no right to treat you like that." "It's all right, Maria," Clara said, trying to reassure the young woman. "I'm used to it. People like me, no one really respects us." "But you don't deserve to be treated that way," Maria protested. "They don't know who you are or everything you've done. If they knew how much you've helped people in the village, they wouldn't dare look down on you." Clara gave a sad smile and said nothing more. She didn't want to argue. But inside, Maria's words planted a seed: she wasn't worthless. She had spent her life helping others, saving every penny to bring joy to her loved ones. She didn't deserve this injustice. Clara decided to return to the jewelry store, this time with a clearer purpose. "I need to prove them wrong," she thought. But when she entered, things only got worse. As the doorbell chimed, Stephen, the manager, glanced at her and let out an audible sigh. "You're back again. I thought I made myself clear." "Excuse me, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to purchase the necklace I asked for," Clara said, trying to keep her voice steady. Lucy, standing by the display case, spoke up again with her usual mocking tone. "Didn't you hear what Mr. Stevens said? That necklace isn't for you." "I have money," Clara insisted, holding up the envelope once more. Alexander chuckled. "Your money probably wouldn't even cover the box the necklace comes in." The laughter rang out, louder this time, from both Lucy and Alexander. Other customers in the store began to notice the commotion. A well-dressed woman, clearly a regular customer, approached with a curious expression. "What's going on?" the woman asked Lucy. Lucy laughed, making no effort to hide her scorn. "Oh, nothing. Just some poor old lady who thinks she can afford high-end jewelry." The woman glanced at Clara with a scrutinizing look before turning back to Lucy and laughing as well. "That's truly amusing." Clara felt her face burn with humiliation. She turned to Stephen, trying one last time. "I just want to buy this gift for my granddaughter. Please, let me see the necklace." Stephen frowned, pretending to consider her words, then nodded. "All right, if you insist, I'll let you see it. But I must warn you, we need to verify your financial capability before you can purchase anything." "Verify my financial capability?" Clara asked, stunned. She had never heard of such a thing before. "Exactly. We cannot waste our precious time if a customer cannot afford to make a purchase," Stephen said, his tone dripping with disdain. "But I have enough money to buy it," Clara argued, clutching the envelope tightly in her hand. "Cash? That's inappropriate. If you wish, you can come back when you have a credit card or proper financial documentation," Stephen replied, his words extinguishing Clara's last flicker of hope. By now, the other customers in the store had started whispering amongst themselves, their gazes filled with curiosity and scorn. A man standing nearby chuckled. "This is hilarious. Does she think this is some village market?" Clara couldn't take it anymore. She felt like a spectacle, a laughingstock in everyone's eyes. The humiliation surged through her, but she refused to let the tears fall. Straightening her back, she clutched her bag and walked briskly out of the store, leaving behind the laughter and contemptuous stares. Out on the street, Clara stopped by a bench, her entire body trembling with anger and humiliation. They don't even see me as a person, she thought, fury welling up in her heart. Yet within that anger, a faint glimmer of hope sparked. She vowed to herself that she wouldn't let this injustice continue. Mrs. Clara sat on the park bench near the jewelry store, her trembling hands gripping her cloth bag. The mocking laughter and disdainful looks from inside the shop haunted her, stabbing at her pride like needles. For the first time in her life, she felt a humiliation that was almost unbearable. "Are you all right?" A deep, warm voice spoke. Clara looked up to see an older man, well-dressed, standing before her. He held a polished wooden cane, his kind face etched with concern. "I'm fine," Clara answered softly, trying to hide the storm of emotions within her. "You don't seem fine," the man replied, sitting gently beside her. "I'm Mr. Vincent. I often take walks in this park. If you'd like, you can tell me what happened." Clara studied him for a moment, feeling a small sense of relief at his genuine concern. She sighed and began recounting her story. When she reached the part about the jewelry store employees mocking and refusing to serve her, Vincent's brow furrowed, and his eyes flashed with indignation. "This is unacceptable!" Vincent exclaimed, his voice filled with anger. "People like that think they have the right to determine someone's worth based solely on appearances. It's disgraceful." Clara bowed her head, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to buy a meaningful gift for my granddaughter. I've saved my whole life for it. But they don't see me as a customer, they see me as a poor, undeserving person who has no business entering their store." Vincent was silent for a moment, seemingly deep in thought. Then he looked at Clara with determination in his eyes. "Mrs. Clara, what you've described is not just your story. It's a reflection of how society often operates, judging people by their appearance. But I believe you shouldn't stay silent. They had no right to treat you that way." Clara nodded faintly, but her mind was still in turmoil. "I know, but who am I to change that? I'm just an ordinary old woman from a village. I don't have power or money to fight them." Vincent chuckled softly, his eyes gleaming with wisdom. "Sometimes, you don't need power or money, what you need is determination. If you'll allow me, I can help you find a way to make them rethink their actions." The conversation with Vincent was like a breath of fresh air for Clara. She no longer felt alone in her battle. After saying goodbye to Vincent, she walked away with a strange mix of emotions, anger and resolve. "I can't let them continue to look down on me like this," she thought. That evening, Clara sat at the small dining table in her modest home. On the table lay the envelope containing the money she had saved all her life. Each coin was a testament to years of hard work, scrimping, and saving from selling produce, baking goods, and helping her neighbors. She took out a sheet of paper and began to write. Her words were serious and direct but filled with emotion. The letter was addressed to a well-known lawyer in the region, someone Vincent had recommended. Clara didn't spell out her intentions, but she knew she needed help to prepare for something bigger. A week later, Clara received a response from the lawyer. Mr. Xavier, a middle-aged man with a professional demeanor, arrived at her home carrying a briefcase. "Mrs. Clara, I've read your letter," Xavier began as he sat down at her table. "And I must say, your story surprised and impressed me. Are you truly planning to buy that jewelry store?" Clara nodded, her eyes alight with determination. "I can't accept being treated with such disrespect. I want them to understand that no one has the right to judge others based on their appearance." Xavier sat in thoughtful silence for a moment, then smiled faintly. "You're a remarkably determined woman. I will help you. But first, we'll need to proceed discreetly. That store is currently owned by a corporation, but fortunately, they're looking to sell off some underperforming branches. I'll negotiate on your behalf. But won't they find out who I am? Clara asked nervously. No, I'll ensure your identity remains confidential. This is something I've handled many times before. The key is to act quickly, as opportunities like this don't last long. Clara nodded, her heart a mix of nerves and determination. She couldn't believe she had come this far, but there was no turning back. Do whatever is necessary, she said, her voice carrying a resolve that even surprised her. A week later, Clara received a phone call from Xavier. It's done, ma'am. As of today, you are the new owner of Golden Sun Jewelry. Clara sat in stunned silence, unable to believe her ears. Then a faint smile spread across her face. Thank you, Xavier. But I don't want anyone to know, at least not yet. As you wish. We'll keep this confidential until you're ready, Xavier replied. Clara hung up the phone, a strange mix of satisfaction and anticipation filling her heart. She knew this was just the beginning. Mrs. Clara set the phone down, her emotions swirling in an unusual mix of fear and fiery determination. The contempt shown to her by the staff at Golden Sun Jewelry had awakened something deep inside, a fire that had smoldered quietly her entire life but never had the chance to burn brightly. Now, as the store's new owner, Clara knew exactly what she needed to do. The following morning, Clara left her house early. Instead of heading directly to the jewelry store, she stopped by to visit Vincent, the man who had given her the courage to move forward. Vincent welcomed her warmly and prepared a steaming cup of coffee. Mrs. Clara, how are things progressing? Vincent asked, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. The transaction is complete, Clara replied, her voice calm but tinged with pride. The store is now mine. Vincent broke into a broad smile, tapping the table lightly. Wonderful. But what's your next step? Are you going to announce it right away? Clara shook her head, her expression thoughtful. Not yet. I want to observe them for a while longer. I want to understand how they operate and how they treat their customers before deciding my next move. That's wise, Vincent agreed with a nod. Do you need any help? I can accompany you if you'd like. No need, Vincent. This is something I need to handle myself. But I deeply appreciate your support, Clara replied, her tone carrying a rare warmth. That afternoon, Clara donned a clean but worn coat, tied her wool scarf neatly, and walked into Golden Sun Jewelry as a regular customer. The employees had no idea that the woman standing before them was now their employer. Here again. Lucy, the young clerk, muttered loudly enough for Clara to hear. Clara said nothing, quietly observing how the staff treated other customers. A young, well-dressed couple entered the store and were immediately greeted by Lucy and Alexander with bright, welcoming smiles. They spoke sweetly, introducing each piece of jewelry, even inviting the couple to sit and try on items. Clara approached a different counter where Isabel, the oldest employee, was stationed. Clara deliberately engaged her. Excuse me, could you show me this silver ring? She asked. Isabel hesitated, her eyes betraying a hint of reluctance. Compared to her colleagues, Isabel seemed less overtly haughty, but she still hesitated when faced with Clara's modest appearance. After a moment of indecision, Isabel nodded slightly and unlocked the display case, retrieving the ring Clara had pointed out. How much is this? Clara asked, her tone steady. 120 euros, Isabel answered without much expression. That expensive? Clara said deliberately, feigning hesitation. Lucy, who was assisting customers nearby, turned and smirked. If it's too expensive, you can leave right now. Clara turned toward Lucy, her face revealing no emotion. But inside, she took note of every word and gesture. Thank you, but I'm just browsing, she replied calmly. After leaving the store, Clara went to meet Xavier, the lawyer who had facilitated the purchase. The two of them sat in a quiet cafe to discuss the next steps. Mrs. Clara, what would you like me to do now? Xavier asked, opening a notebook in front of him. I want to see all the employee records, especially those working directly with customers, Clara said, her tone colder than usual. Xavier nodded. I'll request them from the current management team. Do you plan to fire anyone immediately? Clara shook her head. Not yet. I want the full picture first. People like Lucy and Alexander the first need to know how many other customers they've hurt before me. Xavier smiled, his eyes filled with respect. You're very strategic, Mrs. Clara. You're not just seeking revenge, but real change. Exactly, Clara replied, her gaze firm. I'm not doing this just for myself. I want this jewelry store to become a place where everyone feels respected, no matter who they are. In the days that followed, Clara continued observing the employees at the store. Often, she stood at the corner of the street opposite, watching how they interacted with each customer. Clara noticed that she wasn't the only one mistreated. A middle-aged woman in simple clothes entered the store and was immediately ignored by Lucy, while Alexander pretended to be busy polishing a display case to avoid engaging with her. When the woman inquired about the price of an item, they responded curtly and quickly turned away, showing no further interest. Clara's anger simmered, but she refrained from acting immediately. She knew patience would yield greater results. They will face the consequences, she thought, clenching her fists. Mrs. Clara continued her quiet surveillance over the next few days, leaving no detail unnoticed. She observed the stark contrast in how Lucy, Alexander, and a few others treated customers, warm and attentive to the well-dressed, cold and dismissive to the modestly attired. However, Clara also noticed Isabel, who, while not overly friendly, at least made an effort to fulfill her duties. That evening, Clara met with Xavier again in her modest home, the dim light casting a determined glow on her face as she shared what she had witnessed. Xavier, I don't just want to retaliate, Clara began, her voice calm but resolute. I want this place to become somewhere everyone is treated equally. But first, I need those who disrespected me to face the consequences of their actions. Xavier nodded thoughtfully. I understand. You want them to confront the repercussions of their behavior? Exactly. I want them to realize that arrogance and a lack of respect for others can ruin their careers. But before that, I need to determine who is worth keeping and who doesn't deserve to stay, Clara explained. Xavier paused, then jotted something down in his notebook. We can conduct an internal evaluation. I'll create an anonymous survey for the staff to share their thoughts on how the store should be run. This will help you see who genuinely values customers and who doesn't. Great idea, Clara said, her eyes lighting up. But we need something more direct. I want to observe them in real situations where they don't know they're being evaluated. Xavier smiled, understanding Clara's intent. You want to create a test scenario, don't you? Let me come up with something. The next morning, Xavier arrived at Golden Sun Jewelry in a modest outfit. He looked like an average middle-class man, far removed from his usual image as a distinguished lawyer. He played the role of an ordinary customer, entering the store to assess how the staff treated him. As Xavier stepped inside, the bell rang as usual. Alexander, standing near a display case, glanced at Xavier and frowned. Good morning. What do you need? He asked, his tone devoid of enthusiasm. I'd like to see the silver necklace with the blue stone in that case, Xavier said, pointing to the corner display where Clara had first spotted the necklace. Alexander looked Xavier up and down, then smirked. That one's expensive. Are you sure? Xavier feigned hesitation. Well, I just want to take a look. Maybe it's within my budget. Alexander sighed, muttering something under his breath, and reluctantly opened the display case. He picked up the necklace, but instead of handing it to Xavier for a closer look, he held it in his own hand and spoke curtly. This one is 1,200 euros. Do you have that kind of money? I can pay by credit card, Xavier replied, keeping his composure. All right, But to avoid wasting time, we'll need to verify your financial capacity first. You understand, don't you? Alexander said with a cold, dismissive smile, clearly unwilling to assist Xavier. Lucy, standing nearby, watched the interaction and turned to Charles, whispering. That guy looks pitiful. Probably just another one coming in to browse and leave. Charles chuckled. Such a waste of time. Xavier remained calm, smiled politely, and left the store without another word. He returned to Clara and recounted everything that had happened. Exactly like what I experienced, Clara said, unable to hide her disappointment. Precisely, Xavier agreed. But you know what? This will make excellent evidence. We need a few more scenarios to build a complete picture. The next day, Clara sent an old friend, Teresa, to the store. Teresa, a retired teacher, dressed in simple clothes and carried a well-worn handbag. She entered the store with a friendly smile but was immediately met with cold stares. Excuse me, I'd like to see some silver rings, Teresa said, approaching Lucy. Lucy smirked and turned to Isabel. Isabel, could you help her? I'm busy. Then she walked away, clearly unwilling to spend her time on Teresa. Isabel nodded and stepped forward. While her attitude wasn't particularly warm, she still helped Teresa look at a few rings. This one is €80, Isabel said, her tone neutral. Teresa nodded and smiled gratefully. Thank you. I'll think about it. But as Teresa turned to leave, Lucy laughed loudly and said to Charles. She definitely can't afford anything. She's just here to look around for fun. When Clara received reports from both Xavier and Teresa, she knew she had gathered enough evidence. She spent the entire evening reviewing Xavier's detailed notes, reliving the sneers and dismissive attitudes through every word. Each line felt like fuel poured on the fire of her anger. These people don't deserve to serve customers, Clara muttered, her hands trembling with rage. But she took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. This isn't just about me. I'm doing this for everyone who's ever been looked down upon and treated unfairly. The next morning, the atmosphere at Golden Sun Jewelry was the same as any other day. Golden lights sparkled across the polished jewelry cases, and the staff maintained their usual air of arrogance. Lucy smiled insincerely at a wealthy customer, while Alexander busied himself wiping a display case, occasionally casting judgmental glances at other patrons. But everything changed when the doors suddenly opened, and the familiar bell rang. Mrs. Clara entered not with the timid demeanor and downcast eyes they were used to, but with a commanding presence. She wore a sleek, dark dress, and her old wool scarf had been replaced by a simple yet elegant silk one. Her sharp gaze exuded authority, drawing the attention of every staff member. Lucy, in the middle of speaking with a customer, froze when she saw Clara. Her eyebrows shot up in surprise before she turned to Alexander and whispered. It's her again. How is she back here? Alexander shrugged, replying under his breath. Maybe she still thinks she can buy something here. Clara strode confidently into the center of the store, her heels clicking firmly against the marble floor. She stopped in front of the main counter, her eyes sweeping over the staff. Everyone, gather here, Clara said, her voice loud and clear. The employees exchanged confused glances. Lucy's irritation was evident. We're busy serving customers. Clara didn't move, her piercing gaze fixed on Lucy. I said, everyone, gather here. Now. At that moment, Stephen, the manager, emerged from the back office holding a folder. He looked at Clara, initially surprised, but his expression quickly shifted to his usual arrogant demeanor. Madam, if you're not here to make a purchase, I'm afraid you can't disrupt our operations like this. Clara met Stephen's eyes, her lips curling into a faint but razor-sharp smile. You think I don't have the right to be here? She reached into her bag and pulled out a set of documents, slamming them down on the counter. I am the new owner of this jewelry store. The store fell silent. Lucy, Alexander, and the other employees stood frozen, their faces filled with disbelief. Stephen frowned, his eyes darting to the documents before looking back at Clara, now visibly confused. "You must be joking," he said. "She's not joking," a voice rang out from behind. Xavier, the lawyer, entered with a composed demeanor, carrying another set of documents. He placed them on the counter and continued. "This is proof of the acquisition. From today onward, Mrs. Clara Martinez is the sole owner of Golden Sun Jewelry." Stephen's face turned pale. Lucy's mouth fell open, and Alexander stepped back, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Impossible," Lucy stammered. "How could she?" "Silence," Clara said, her voice cold and commanding. "Now, I want all of you to listen closely to what I'm about to say." Clara stepped forward, her gaze sweeping over each face. "I've been observing how you run this store. You believe you have the right to judge others solely based on their appearance, don't you? You think only the wealthy, the well-dressed, deserve respect." Lucy stared at the floor, unable to respond. Alexander glanced around nervously, as though looking for an escape. Only Isabel, the oldest employee, remained still, her expression contemplative. "Lucy," Clara said sternly, her voice cutting through the silence. "Did you think I wouldn't notice what you've done? Mocking customers, refusing to serve them, and even openly ridiculing them in this store. I saw it all." Lucy opened her mouth to speak, but Clara raised a hand to stop her. "Don't say anything. There's no excuse for your behavior. You're fired, effective immediately." Lucy's face turned ashen. "You can't do this. I've worked here for over 6 years. I don't care how long you've worked here. What you've done is more than enough for me to make this decision," Clara replied, her tone icy. Clara turned to Alexander. "And you? You're no better. Avoiding customers, speaking to them rudely, and showing no sense of responsibility for your work. You're fired as well." Alexander's mouth hung open, but no words came out. He simply stood there, his face burning with shame. Finally, Clara fixed her gaze on Stephen. "And you, the one who was supposed to set an example for the staff, turned out to be the worst of all. Not only did you ignore customer feedback, but you've also been skimming profits from the store. Do you have anything to say?" Stephen tried to maintain his composure, but his voice faltered. I was just doing what was necessary to keep the store running. What you were doing wasn't keeping the store running, it was making it worse. You're fired as well, effective immediately." After delivering the dismissals, Clara addressed the remaining employees. "I'm not here to destroy this store. I'm here to transform it into a place where everyone is treated with respect, no matter who they are, how they dress, or how much money they have. If any of you disagree with this vision, you are free to leave now." A heavy silence fell over the store. After a moment, Isabel stepped forward and nodded at Clara. "I'll stay. I've always believed that customers deserve respect." Clara offered a faint smile. "Thank you, Isabel. I trust you to help rebuild this place." Clara moved toward the door and turned back for one final look. "This is an opportunity for a fresh start. I hope you won't disappoint me." With those words, she exited the store, leaving behind a tense silence. After announcing her ownership and dismissing the unworthy staff, Mrs. Clara began her plan to rebuild the team at Golden Sun Jewelry. She knew that changing a place steeped in outdated practices wouldn't be easy. But she believed that with the right people and the proper work ethic, Golden Sun Jewelry could become a symbol of respect and exceptional customer service. The next morning, Clara summoned the remaining staff to a meeting in the office behind the store. The room was small, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. Isabel sat at the front, her face a mix of worry and determination. A few younger employees, including Anna and Xavier, who managed bookkeeping and inventory, were also present. Clara entered, her gaze moving deliberately across the room. She began speaking in a calm yet resolute tone. I've been observing all of you over the past weeks. I know who among you has worked diligently and who hasn't fulfilled their responsibilities. Those who disrespected customers have been dismissed. But for those of you still here, I believe you can do better. She turned to Isabel. Isabel, I know you haven't always been enthusiastic, but I've seen you step up to help customers when others ignored them. You've done what you could in difficult circumstances, and I respect that. Starting today, you'll be responsible for training new employees. With your experience and patience, I trust you to teach them how to do things the right way. Isabel's eyes widened in surprise, and she looked genuinely touched. Thank you, Mrs. Clara. I'll do my best not to disappoint you. Clara then addressed Anna, the young employee in charge of inventory. Anna, I know you don't interact with customers often, but your bookkeeping is always clear and precise. I need someone with your attention to detail to oversee inventory management. From today, that will be your role. Anna blushed, clearly taken aback. Thank you. I'll do my best. Turning to Xavier, who also worked in inventory management, Clara said. Xavier, I want you to take charge of the store's entire operations. I need someone young, driven, and ready to improve things. Are you up for the challenge? Xavier smiled confidently. I'd be honored, ma'am. This is my chance to prove myself. After appointing key roles, Clara revealed her vision for the store's future. She held up a sign with a bold, clear message. Respect every customer, regardless of appearance, age, or financial status. Clara emphasized. This principle will guide everything we do. I want anyone who walks into this store to feel respected and valued, whether they make a purchase or not, whether they're dressed in luxury or simplicity. If anyone here cannot commit to this standard, they have no place on our team. Isabel nodded firmly, and Anna and Xavier echoed her agreement. Seeing their determination, Clara felt a glimmer of hope. To elevate Golden Sun Jewelry, Clara knew retaining the current staff wasn't enough. She needed fresh faces, people with a positive attitude and a modern approach to customer service. Clara tasked Xavier with posting job listings on various online platforms and at customer service training schools in New York. Soon, dozens of applications poured in. Clara personally reviewed each one, looking for energetic candidates with strong communication skills and a passion for serving others. The interviews were conducted in the small office behind the jewelry store. Clara, along with Isabel and Xavier, personally interviewed the candidates. One of the first to leave a strong impression was Paul, a young man who had previously worked at a luxury hotel. Tell me, Paul, why do you want to work here? Clara asked, her sharp gaze fixed on him. Paul smiled confidently. I believe every customer deserves respect. In my previous job, I learned how to listen to customers' needs and meet them with utmost care. I want to bring what I've learned to this place. Clara nodded in approval. Good. I'll consider it. Another standout candidate was Elena, a young woman with a warm smile and bright eyes. When asked why she applied, she replied, I love creating positive experiences for customers. I believe a genuine smile can brighten someone's entire day. Clara sensed the sincerity in Elena's words and immediately decided to hire her. After a week of recruitment, Clara had assembled a team that was young, enthusiastic, and professional. She organized a meeting to introduce the new employees to the existing staff. Standing before the team, Clara's eyes shone with hope. We're here not just to sell jewelry. We're here to create memorable experiences, to make every customer feel welcome. Let's work together to make Golden Sun Jewelry a symbol of kindness and professionalism. The team applauded, and the atmosphere buzzed with positive energy. Clara felt the change she had envisioned beginning to take shape. Under Mrs. Clara's leadership, Golden Sun Jewelry began to transform day by day. She not only restructured the staff but also redefined the store's operations and core values. Clara understood that to make Golden Sun Jewelry a hallmark in New York, the focus had to be on both products and building a genuine and heartfelt image. She started by redesigning the store's interior. Clara hired a team of designers to create a space that was welcoming yet maintained its elegance. The golden lights were adjusted to be softer and more inviting, and the glass display cases were rearranged to make it easier for customers to browse without needing assistance. A large wall was dedicated to displaying the store's new motto: respect, sincerity, quality. Clara also introduced a special section featuring affordable jewelry, ensuring that customers with modest incomes felt just as welcome. This section was named Loving Hands, a concept Clara created for those seeking meaningful gifts without spending excessively. The new employees underwent thorough training under Isabel's guidance. Isabel, now in charge of training, taught them how to truly listen to customers, not just to sell but to understand their needs and desires. Every staff member was reminded: customers don't just come to buy jewelry, they come seeking joy and appreciation. One day, an elderly woman in simple clothing entered the store, her hesitant demeanor suggesting she felt unworthy of being there. This time, instead of receiving disdainful looks, she was greeted warmly by Elena, one of the new hires. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you today?" Elena said, her voice full of warmth. I just wanted to look at a bracelet for my granddaughter. But I'm not sure I can afford one," the woman replied, her voice trembling. "Don't worry, ma'am. I'll help you find a beautiful and meaningful gift," Elena said, guiding her to the Loving Hands section. After some time, the woman left with a lovely silver bracelet and a bright smile on her face. The story quickly spread within the community, drawing curiosity about the changes at Golden Sun Jewelry. Soon, the store became known as a place where anyone could enter without fear of judgment. Clara realized she needed to amplify the message of transformation. She organized a small press conference at the store, inviting local journalists to share her story. During the event, Clara openly recounted her experience of discrimination. "No matter who you are, no matter how much money you have, you deserve respect," Clara said to the cameras. "Golden Sun Jewelry doesn't just sell jewelry, we bring the values of sincerity and kindness." Her story quickly became a topic of interest, with the media hailing her as a courageous woman who stood against injustice and brought a fresh perspective to the service industry in New York. Clara didn't stop at improving customer service. She allocated part of the store's profits to support local charitable initiatives. One standout project was the Bracelets of Hope Scholarship Fund, created to help underprivileged students pursue education. Additionally, Clara sponsored a vocational training center for older women, teaching them craft skills to earn a living. She understood that people like her, modest yet resilient, deserved opportunities to shine. Each year, Golden Sun Jewelry hosted a grand customer appreciation event, featuring free gifts, special discounts, and the sharing of heartfelt stories from loyal customers. These events not only attracted more customers but also fostered a sense of community around the brand. Clara's transformation inspired not only the customers but also her employees. Isabel, who once worked rigidly and lacked enthusiasm, became a dedicated mentor. Elena, with her ever-present smile, became the most beloved staff member. Even Xavier, who had previously worked only behind the scenes, took pride in being part of the change. One day, a regular customer approached Clara, took her hands, and said, "You've taught us an important lesson, that character and kindness are worth more than all the jewelry in this store. Thank you for showing us that." Clara smiled, her heart full of joy. She knew that the changes she had brought about not only improved Golden Sun Jewelry but also conveyed a more profound message. A person's value is not determined by their wealth but by how they treat others. Under Clara's leadership, Golden Sun Jewelry quickly became one of the most cherished jewelry stores in New York, not just for its high-quality products but for its inspiring story of humanity and kindness behind every piece of jewelry. Clara, once a simple woman dismissed by others, now stood as a symbol of true character and values. The story of Mrs. Clara Martinez serves as a vivid reminder of the power of character and kindness. Through her journey, she proved that a person's true worth is not in their appearance or possessions but in how they treat others. The lesson is clear: never judge others by their appearance, for everyone has a story worth respecting. Respect and sincerity not only build lasting success but also bring deeper meaning to life and community.
If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.